Alright, so here we're going to start something a little bit different. I'm going to make a series of swatches of different kind of crochet stitches. I'm going to make them into 3 by 3 inch squares, and that will make them suitable to be coasters. So we've got a yarn. This is weight 4 worsted weight. This is, in North America at least, the most commonly sold weight of yarn. It's also the one that you'll get most of the mass market or inexpensive types in. This is a cotton yarn because I don't want to spill hot stuff on it and have it potentially melt. Though that would have to be at an extremely high temperature, but that is a thing that can happen with yarns that are made of plastic like acrylic and polyester. So this is cotton. I am not going to make a long tail on it just because I'm going to crochet around it as a border once the square is done, so the tail will be eaten by the border, so to speak. So we're going to make a slip knot, make a loop, use the hook to pull the loop through, tighten onto the hook. I'm using a 4.5 millimeter hook with the weight 4 yarn. If you're going for the most typical yarn, the most typical hook size used with a worsted weight yarn, which is weight 4, is a 5 millimeter. If you want something that has a tighter gauge, like if you were going to be making something that needed to be very compact or very dense, like small stuffed animals, amigurumi, it's a Japanese word for small stuffed animals basically. Things like that, you would use a smaller gauge hook, so that for that you'd use a 4.5. I've even used a 3.5 millimeter on those, but 4.5 or a 5 is what you're typically going to be using for most things that are not getting stuffed with stuffing, so you don't want to see the stuffing through them. So we're going to hook our yarn and pull it through because we are chaining right now. So we're just going to keep hooking our yarn and pulling it through. I like to hold the tail with 2 fingers here. I think enough to actually grab my ruler. There we go. So we are going for 3 inches. If you're going to be doing stuff that gets measured, then having a measuring tape is a useful tool to have. This weird bulb thing on the bottom is not a stitch. Neither is this one right here. So we have 3 inches now. Something very fun about that kind of a... Alright, so top of your crochet here should look like a bunch of V's. See the V's? V's. So we're not going into this one, we're going into this one. So we're going to just go in through that top part. See, there's 2 V's on this one goes with this one, going under just the top one. We're going to hook around, come through, like what you did for the chain, but now you're going to hook one more and take it through 2. And that is a single crochet stitch. Come on, ball of yarn. Angle that slightly so he'll work with me a bit better. You see the next one. We're already in this one. We're going to go into this one now. Yarn tensioning with the left hand in crochet is less about making sure that the tension of the yarn is totally even, at least in my experience, so much it is as making sure that you have quick access to the yarn and it doesn't get tangled up or otherwise get in your way. See, we've got these little bumps at the top. That is what we're going into. You should have 1 stitch for each of these diagonal lines. So they do admittedly get put off center after a little while. So the chains we did at the bottom, this is called the foundation chain. And we're doing singles into the loops of the chain. You can also do something called a foundation single crochet. We will do that some other time. This is basics. So your most basic tools for crochet are a hook, a yarn that corresponds to the hook you have, or vice versa. Okay, we're at the end of the row now because we do not go into that little bump. So we're going to chain one and turn it. This is the back of the work now. One of the notable features that differentiates them is you'll note how this is kind of a V shape with a line on top. Back here, you still have kind of a V shape, but you have a line and then another line. And that line is the top of the stitch. You see we have our V's again here. So we've made one chain. This is the chain. He does not count as a stitch, unless otherwise stated in a pattern, but usually they don't. So this is where we're going in. Now we want to go in to both of those. This is the front loop, based on our perspective, and this is the back loop. We go underneath both of them. This is called yarn over. Just put the yarn over the hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through. And we're going to go across here, making sure that we are going into, not splitting the yarn like that, making sure we're going into both. So on the front of the work, you will note that we are just going under it. Those little V's at the bottom stay intact. And we are going into this little space here on the back. So you're not going into that bottom loop. That is a different stitch entirely. I believe that would be called an elongated. No, well, something like that. I'll look it up later. So we're just going to go across here. Your single crochet is the basis, or is at least used in just about everything you will ever crochet. 2 V's, or both legs of the V rather. Both legs of the V. Dog is snoring in the background. Poor pathetic puppy. So I'll probably do a separate playlist of these. Cotton yarn likes to cling to itself a little bit more than some other kinds. Okay, now we have come to this point. This guy here is the turning chain from the first row. And as such, he is not a stitch, so we are not going to be going into that one. You'll note you have almost kind of a C shape on the back side. And this is the last stitch. You can also count these horizontal bars if you're counting on the back of the work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 apparently is how many of these I have. On the front, well, those are the bars from the other row, but if you're counting on the front part of a crochet, this is the single stitch. So this is each of those 2 lines. That is what you would be counting. So there, there, there. And that's one way you can keep count. All right. Chain again. Turn the work. There's our V's, top view. There's our bars from the back of the previous stitches. Going in. And coming out. One thing you can do, I'll grab one of these just for demonstration purposes. Actually, I'll grab 2 for demonstration purposes. If you're unsure about what is and is not a stitch, these are some interlocking stitch markers. If you have access to them, you can put one into your turning chain. So you know that when you come to this point, the one that this is in, you do not put a stitch into. You can do it over here too. See He's right there. I just dropped my hook, but that's okay. Cotton is very stable, so as you can see, it will, generally speaking, hold its shape. So it's generally quite forgiving. It can be a little bit harder on your hands because the cotton will absorb moisture or oils that are on your hands, so you may find it necessary to either lotion your hands more frequently or to... I had a thought, and now it's gone. Oh, right. To use a tensioning ring to just protect if the yarn is going through your fingers or something. With the way I crochet, I haven't figured out how to make a tensioning ring work. So that does mean, especially if I'm crocheting with a rougher cotton, this one is medium roughness, I would say. I have used ones that are much rougher. I have also used cottons that are much smoother. So, but there is a limit to how much I can do of crocheting with a cotton yarn in a row. But some of that is also just kind of developing. Your skin will thicken a little bit if it gets it running over it fairly frequently, so you get basically a baby callus. Going through both the legs of the V and keeping going. If I should be moving the camera any closer to this, or if that'll just do weird things with the focus. I guess one other thing I should address is I hold my hook like a knife. This is called knife hold. Some people hold their hook like this. This is called pen hold. Both are fine. This is my personal preference. There's not really that much difference with the way it performs, or I don't think there's much difference in the hand fatigue either. Though I have understood from other people that if you hold your hook like a pencil, the ones that have, here, let me grab one. I do have some of these running around. Oops, that's fine. These ergonomic handled ones apparently are less fatiguing on the hands if you hold it like a pencil. I tend to hold it like a knife, so that doesn't really matter much to me. There we go, pick that back up. See here, we have returned. This is not a stitch. I'm going to go ahead and take them out. Chain one, turn, into the V's, pull up. We're going to pop this guy back in here, just for a reference. It does look different because it basically wraps over, so it does look a little bit different, but that is something you have to get used to, the look of the thing. Anyway, as I was saying, knife grip is actually a more comfortable way to hold these aluminum style hooks. The reason I own some of the ergonomic ones is partially because I got them in kits for making other crocheted things, and because if I'm out crocheting out in the world and I'm using a crocheted bag to hold my project, and I'm going to be sticking my hook in there whenever I'm not using it, the ergonomic hooks, because they are thicker, are less likely to go through any gaps in the fabric. And that is the only reason that I bought them. Otherwise, I'd be fine with just using these. It is very much a preference thing. If you're wondering if something like that would be useful for you, contact a crocheter close to you and ask if you can just try out their hook. The vast majority of people that I know that do crochet, knitting, just about any craft really, are always more than willing to do demonstrations, borrow or share materials. I, for instance, I probably by now have more than 100 yarn needles. I will demonstrate a darning. Oh, I should explain what I'm doing here. So I've gone through, I'm about to make a chain. One way you can designate this is actually by putting it onto your loop before you make the chain. I've actually done this backwards now. Anyway, so I usually will do something like that though if I'm doing something in the round, which will be a demonstration at a later date. Anyway, so we've got, this is the stitch, this is the chain into our V's from the top view, and off we go again. So yeah, I'll show you one here. So this is a plastic darning needle. You'll oftentimes, if you get like a crochet kit or something, you'll get a few of these in each and every one. So I probably have like 100 of these by now. I also have some of them that have larger eyes. These are more useful for things like bulky, super bulky, so weight 5, 6, 7 yarns. Those go better into that size. These ones, with enough use, and I've only ever had this happen twice, and I've been crocheting for quite a number of years now, but the eyes, the eye of the needle, the plastic part, can snap off. That usually is if you're doing quite hard sewing, or you just use the same ones over and over again. I'm going to just grab a couple of these for demonstration purposes. I should just do a separate video on it. But I also have some metal ones, which have the eyes are a bit more in line. I find these are generally less likely to break, but you can also get them with narrower eyes for if you are working with a narrower yarn. Okay, let's get back to focus here. I should probably just do a video on just materials that are associated with crochet. That would be a good idea. Let me see our V underneath. From this view underneath. And I should probably do a little bit of this as well. So, thing, where would you go? Nope. If I'm going to crochet with my left hand, I need to actually start it on the full left side of the row. Otherwise, it's switching it at the wrong time. As you see the pattern works up, you do actually have kind of a little bit of a gap there. And this is, you get this with working with there is usually supposed to be something of a gap there. It's not supposed to be super crazy ultra dense. I also have very high natural tension, so that plays into it as well. Apparently the birds are very happy that I filled up the feeder this morning. But I think that blue jay out there is going to gorge himself on the seeds if he is allowed to permitted to have his way. So you see on this one I went through just one. So I'm going to double check that I've gone through both. That is more likely to happen at the start or end of a row. So we got to our last stitch, we chained one, and back in we go. Now I'm making this into a coaster. You could just keep going off like that way, and make it so it's large enough to go over your head and make it into a headband. You could do it really, really long and make it into a very skinny scarf. But this is your basic. This is a very good project for just kind of sticking your feet in the water, sticking a toe in the water, if you will. If you want to try crocheting, I would highly encourage you to check in either with the people you know, or if you have like a neighborhood group near where you live. Just put a feeler out there, see if you've got any crocheters around, because as I said, the vast majority of the people that I have met who are crafters are very excited to help people that are new to the craft. Many books are also very helpful resources. You don't necessarily have to buy them. Libraries usually have a decent selection of beginner-friendly books. Almost all crochet books that I have acquired, and I have many, pretty much all have a demonstration inside of them about how to do the basic stitches. Some using drawn pictures, some where it's photographs of someone doing it. You can also get a lot of the supplies for this kind of stuff at, seems like a decent quantity of dollar stores actually have a lot of these things now. Another thing you can investigate is a crochet kit of some kind. Some are more beginner friendly than others. There is unfortunately a rise of kits that are using AI generated patterns and or images that unfortunately will not necessarily work up to what they are supposedly describing, which is very unfortunate. So I would recommend, if you do want to get a kit, check the reviews, and if at all possible, see if it sounds like it's actual humans making it or if it's just bots, because crochet can be a bit of a learning curve on its own. You don't want to get frustrated by having a pattern that doesn't work or extremely poor quality materials. But that is not to say that inexpensive materials can't be very useful. This hook I got in a set of, what was it? 20 hooks, I believe, were in this set, and I got it for less than $20. So, and I've been using these hooks for 8 or 9 years now. So when you've done this the way I did it, this is actually now in the stitch. See that there's the V's and then there's the crossbar here. So we're going to go into those V's and do that up. My yarn spinner is trying to wrap its yarn back around itself. That's another thing that will eventually be discussed that can be useful but is not required. So we have our chain 1. The thing you'll note, chains do have the V, but the sides don't look the same at all. Now my camera is actually basically even with my eyes, so you are seeing what I am seeing. If I wanted to, I could crochet based on what is showing on my view screen, but honestly that's a little weird when I'm used to doing it in just normal person. I've done the same thing here. I'm going to just take that off for now. Horizontal bar, V, going into the V. I'm going to not put that stitch marker back in, just so I can show a little more what that looks like if you're not using it. You see our edge is fairly neat. If I was just crocheting this straight, I'd probably actually be done by now if I wasn't talking so much and showing things, but that is what it is. But this is more in line with the tutorial than what I've been doing. So you see, V, line. Go through the V, ignore the line. You usually do your chain before you turn. You'll note that little vertical bar is happening every 2 rows. Chain and turn. Note the chain does not have his bar underneath it. Knowing what the stitches look like so that you can kind of look back at your work and figure out what you were doing is a fairly useful skill. I guess the other thing I should note is that there are kind of 2 primary notations for crochet terms. There is American or North American, because honestly most Canadians use that system too, or you have the European system. And the difference is not in the stitches themselves, but in the name. So what I'm doing right now, I would call a single crochet. If I was in Europe, and I wanted my audience to understand what I'm talking about, I would be calling this a double crochet. They would call what I call a slip stitch a single crochet. Yes. They would call it a slip stitch a single crochet. It's not something you usually have to worry about unless you get a pattern that happens to be in the other notation. But I think basically all patterns that I've ever looked at, bought, or had in books usually has it listed at the beginning, either on the pattern if it's an individual pattern or in the front of the book, that which notation system they are using. So you can also get a few other clues, but those aren't always as reliable. For instance, many Canadians, of which I am one, will use British spelling, but tend to pronounce things like more like Americans. Okay, so that's just a quick and dirty way to, if you're making a square, you just fold it from its corners and see if it's even. And it is. So now we are going to make this guy a border. So I have got one chain here. I'm going to pop a row marker on there. Put him away for now since we don't need him. So we're going to be going into the sides of the stitches. And this is a basic single crochet round. Side of a stitch. And around the bulby thing. So I'm doing just kind of the front leg on this one. See how it looks? See how there's 2 lines? I'm going through just one of those. Honestly, I'm not actually sure if that's the way I have learned and or taught myself, but I'm not sure if that's actually technically the proper way or not. And this is just a way to give the thing a nice edge. It can help in some cases to secure things. You see a corner of the Christmas ripple blanket over there. When the main part of the crocheting is done, I will be going around it like this with single crochets to make a border. Okay, we are at the corner. Now, for a corner, you want to go into the corner, come out, make a stitch, another one into the same corner for a turn, and then one more into the same stitch for to be the stitch that starts that side. So a corner gets 3 stitches. Now we're going to be going in to the back of the loops. Here we have a little bit because this was our stitch. So we're actually intruding a little bit almost onto this one. I'm going to pull it back so you can see that there is a loop here. We are going to hold the tail of the yarn on top so that it will be put inside of these single crochets. Each of these gets 1 loop. I'm just going to single crochet across. There are many fancier borders. I think I actually have 2, possibly even 3 books of different patterns for fancy borders that you can put on things, but we are attempting to keep this fairly basic. I'll probably do that for the first 3 or 4, maybe 5 of these little coaster things I'm going to do. Now that I've done a few of these, I'm going to grab the tail, and I'm going to pull on him just to make sure that he's not sticking out between these stitches at all. Because I'm going to start with doing a coaster in each of the most basic stitches, those being the single crochet, which we are doing right now, the half double crochet, which is another very frequently used stitch, the double crochet, which most of the ripple blanket over there is made of, and the regular double crochet, and I'll probably do a treble crochet as well. That one will be quite fast just because a treble crochet takes up a lot of area. Okay, now this is our corner. No, this is our corner. So we have 1 in here already. We're going to do a second. We're going to do a third. We have 3 into 1. I'm going to take this, and we are going to get going. Oh, this I should talk about this. This looks a little bit different. Not by too much, but it does. So we're going through the top one there. For this one, that guy is here, but we're actually going into this space because we're basically going at it upside down from what we did on the other side. Into that loop. If you don't do it that way, then you can end up with something of a gap as it, because like if you think that like that would be all pulled up, then it would look quite a bit different. Is that the neighbor's chicken? No, that's a, I think that's a blue jay. You never know how many weird sounds blue jays make until you start feeding them. Okay, now we're going to be into our corner. So 1 to complete this side, 1 to turn, 1 to start this side. We have 3 in each. So now we will go across the top, which is basically doing exactly what we have here already. when we get to our chain at the end, we are not going to put 3 into it because it already has one. We will instead be doing just 2, and then I will grab the other 2 necessary, or usually necessary, accessories for doing this. And here, I'm going to go into where our chain is. 1 and 2. Pull this through. See our tail here. We're going to grab, whoop, don't fall out of there. So there. Have some scissors. These are sold as embroidery scissors, but I always have them on hand, so they're what I use. We're going to give ourselves a couple of inches of tail because you want that to be able to sew in the tail. Give that a chop. Any scissors will work, as long as they are sharp and not dull. So I recommend not using them to cut cardboard. Okay, so we have our square. Pop these materials over here, and we are going to grab our darning needle. So I'm going to put the yarn onto the needle. Now we're looking at this V here. We're going to put it in just like we would the crochet hook. Pull it through. And you see where this one came from? He's come out of here. We're going to put it into the other side of this loop and pull it through. That gives us the appearance of another V. Pull him tight. We're going to come around here to the back of the work, and we are going to secure him in. Now I like to do this way. By doubling back over yourself, you make it less likely that the thread is going to, the yarn, whatever it's called, is going to catch on something and get unraveled. So you can go kind of weave it underneath the feet where it's going around the other one. That means that from the right side of it, you will not see any thread, yarn. Now, to be the most secure, you want to go at least an inch. And then, provided the thing's not going to be adding too much bulk to it, you can then either come back a row above or below, or you can loop over a single leg and go back through. This is one of the few instances where splitting your yarn by having the needle go through the yarn is not a problem, but that's usually only in a case of weaving in or certain kinds of where you're trying to join 2 balls of yarn together into a single slide. Okay, now a quick word on something called blocking. Blocking is a technique wherein you use water or steam or stretching of some kind to form a piece of work, crochet or knit, into a specific finished shape. It is not always applicable. Cotton, which this is, can be blocked. Wool can be blocked, and it will actually change the shape, change the drape of the finished piece. You can kind of do it a little bit with an acrylic yarn, especially if you're doing lace work, so you can actually see it a little better. But it doesn't have the same effect on an acrylic yarn because natural fibers will actually relax during that blocking process. So you'll actually typically have some amount of the actual item getting bigger when it is blocked. So there we go. So this guy I should block. Between you and me, I'm probably not actually going to, but there he is, a little coaster. Now you could do the same exact thing as what I've done here, but make it, say, 5 or 6 inches, and then you've got a placemat to put underneath, a hot mat to put underneath a pot or something. You could do it in that size or a little bigger and double it up, and you could use that as a pot holder to take things off of a stove or something. Make it, say, 10 or 12 inches square, and then you've got a very sturdy and fairly long-lasting cloth that you can use either in the kitchen or for your own personal cleanup. But there we have it. There is essentially a swatch of single crochet that has a border on it that is now a coaster.